Tarot is often treated like guesswork or a party trick. But what if it's actually a discipline that demands skill, intuition, and responsibility? Tonight, we're digging into what truly makes a tarot reader exceptional and why ethics matter just as much as intuition. Welcome to ParaTruth.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to ParaTruth Reborn. We are live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and United Public Radio Network. My name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And tonight we are talking to Ethony Dawn about her book, Become an Exceptional Tarot Reader. Ethony is an internationally respected tarot educator, author, and deck creator with over 25 years of experience. She's the founder of the Tarot Readers Academy and author of Become an Exceptional Tarot Reader, where she teaches readers how to develop skill, intuition, and ethical responsibility. Ethony is also the creator of several popular tarot and oracle decks and is known for elevating tarot as a thoughtful, professional practice. Now, we are currently still awaiting her arrival, so we're hoping she will be showing up soon here, and if not, on with the show. But nonetheless, so tarot is something that Justin and I have touched on here and there, I think, throughout the course of this current rendition of the show. We've had a few people on to talk about tarot, and of course, we've commented on it multiple times, especially when talking about psychic mediumship and intuition and things like that, and how you can kind of better, in my case, better learn about yourself through tarot. Tarot is one of those things, a type of, if you will, divination that can be used in multiple ways. Some claim that it can help predict the future. Others say that it's more so a guide to help you make life choices. And still others say that it's really a means to help interpret and better understand your inner self. So Justin, right off the bat, what is your familiarity with tarot?
Well, I mean, I've been doing tarot since I was a teen. Have never had the capacity to actually learn all the definitions, but over time, and you know this, we've talked to numerous people where they say, a lot of times you can just tell what the reading is saying just by the imagery on the cards. Don't worry about the definition. The definition is not always 100% accurate anyways. And something that you and I have discussed over time, and even within the last week or so, you had done a reading, and so I'd asked you, what does that mean to you? So a lot of times that is where I'm going now. Hey, Heidi. Where I'm not even paying attention to the definition. I try and interpret the cards myself over. I mean, if I need to, I'll take a glance just to make sure I'm in the ballpark somewhere. But
Yeah, for sure. I think it's it's obviously difficult for the beginners getting in. Some of these cards are so intricate in how they're built, especially when you look at the major arcana. I have multiple decks that have been gifted to me over the last 5 years or so. And each one is vastly different and can give you different meanings based on what's pretty much drawn on them, because each card is basically built with interpretation in mind, and they're not all created equally. So if I were to pick up I don't know, let's say like the Hangman. I mean, Hangman is pretty straightforward, I think, for the most part, but there are sometimes other elements thrown into the artwork as well. with each individual card, and sometimes those elements are different from one card to the next or one deck to the next. Um, and so interpretations can certainly be off. But I think it's important to always kind of recognize some of these pictures and just think about like how they feel to you. What do they represent to you? You know,
Mhm.
um, I forget which one. What was one of the ones that I sent you
I
earlier
can
this week? And I just go to our text messages.
yeah, it was the Hermit and the
Hermit,
Sun.
Hermit. So you know the Hermit in this case. Um, One deck that I really like is a deck that was created by the Ghoulish Garb, and I just love the artistry on it, and I just love the art in general, which is why I actually look at a lot of these tarot cards. But I end up drawing the Hermit, and one thing right off the bat is like in this case, the Hermit is kind of like a cloaked figure with a lantern in one hand, a staff in another, on a boat, on a river, stars in the background, and there's roughly 5 hands or arms reaching up out of the water. And so you kind of have to figure out, you know, how do you interpret that? And you know, for me, there were all kinds of different, uh, I guess, ideas that came to mind. Right? Some of like for me, it was like for the hands. I'll give a prime example here. For the hands, I looked at that and I thought, oh, these are things that are holding me back. These are that are constantly reaching out to try to pull me off of my path, the path that I should be on. You know, the spiritual path, the higher path, etc. But then when you look into the book and the definition, the guide that comes with it, that is not the representation at all. But it doesn't mean that my representation was wrong or my interpretation was wrong. It's just that in this moment, that interpretation was the one that I felt most connected with, because I do feel like there are things that are kind of trying to pull me back, you know, things that are trying to keep me off the spiritual road, and taking that next step into a higher spirit and higher self. Um, and I think like it's got to be something that I'm sure you deal with on the regular. I know when I gave you, you asked me what I thought about these, and I gave you my interpretation. You felt they were pretty spot on, but you could have easily just said, "Well, I feel completely opposite. I feel like it's this, this, and this."
Well, I mean, what I was first getting was that you know, you're already this way, that you're a very solitude type person, lone wolf type of person, and that, but you are also a guide, much as I am, essentially what we're doing here on this show, and that with the sun, you are the guiding light that is going to help people.
Hmm.
So your interpretation kind of matched mine, just worded a little bit differently. So that's why I was like, I think I'm getting kind of the same thing. So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing with tarot, and we kind of talked about this, I believe, last week. That the problem with tarot, and I'm not saying this to be um, derogatory to it, because I do use it as a tool, but it is the interpretation of the person that's reading them. Now, granted, you know, a lot of people say that you're being guided by spirit and, you know, stuff like that. But again, we don't know for sure. Are we being guided by spirit? Is it just circumstance that you find these cards? Um,
Well, and that's another thing I think altogether, because you know I mean, I personally don't think that the cards themselves are endued by any sort of spiritual power, right, or energy, because a lot of these cards are mass produced on something that's creating dozens of different types of books or cards or what have you. Like, it's not like a certain an individual person is creating these and then putting energy into them and then sending them out. That's typically not how that works, especially on the mass produced ones. But on the flip side, it also is dependent on how you most people say energize the card.
mhm.
You know, people say you want to energize them by shuffling them, or you want to you know, kind of hold the cards in one hand, put your other hand over top, and kind of put energy into them, whatever energy you're feeling, and try to energize them and get them to respond to you.
Well,
uh,
that's the other thing though too. I've heard people say, and this was years ago. Things have kind of changed a little bit here and there, but when I first started reading tarot, um, the way that the book taught you to do it was to have the person you're reading for put their energy into the deck. But the problem is then you're mixing your energy and their energy because you are holding the deck, so it is getting your energy as well.
Yeah. Well, and again, of course, it all so it's dependent on whether or not you're actually reading for somebody else or yourself. I don't read for other
Right.
people. If I read, and in the past when I have read, it's always been for myself. But I've also used it not. I've also used it more as like a guide or like a view into inner workings. Because it's kind of been a type of therapy, I guess. It helps me kind of like look at the pictures, think about my life currently, and helps me break down the things that maybe I've been ignoring. Um, and it goes back to the hermit. Again, thinking about those hands, the things that are dragging you down or trying to hold you back. That is something I've been dealing with over the last uh, couple of months now, but nothing that I've really taken the time to focus any energy on. I've never bothered to waste my time thinking about it because it hasn't been on the forefront of my mind. But seeing that card and seeing these hands, it kind of like took that and threw it at the forefront. And suddenly I was like, oh, like epiphany, right? Even though it was there in front of my eyes the entire time. Um, but yeah, I guess it really just depends, and I am the type, like if I were to shuffle, like I usually would shuffle until something falls out or until I come across a card that just feels like it just feels right. It's like maybe it sticks out slightly, maybe you touch it and it's like that's the one. I think that's got
Yeah.
to be it.
Right.
And I know in this case, like if when I sent you the one I drew two cards. That's very rare. I usually just draw one card and base everything off of that. And if I need further interpretation, maybe I try a couple more. But in this case, I had two cards pop out at the same time, and I didn't feel right choosing one over the other. So I was like, that means both. And there we had it, the Hermit and the Sun. And that happens as well. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because sometimes you choose one over the other, but that other might be significant, especially in relation to the first one that you pulled.
Right. Well, and I've seen this on people doing like generalized readings on like TikTok or even on YouTube, and they'll have a card fall out or a couple of cards fall out even.
Mhm.
And they don't discriminate. They pick up all the cards that have fallen out and add it to the reading. They keep shuffling to see if there's anything that feels, so it's kind of like a mixture of what you're saying, where they have stuff fall out, but they're drawing multiple cards, not just a single card.
Right.
And I I have not done a tarot reading for myself or anybody else for a very long time. I really do want to do it, just because of the message I got from doing my meditation cleansing
Mhm.
the other day that I shared with you. Um, and maybe do a cleansing and then do the tarot reading or something like that, just so that I'm grounded. Um, because again, it's one of those things where it is a tool, and not only should you be cleansing the deck, but you should be cleansing yourself too before you do a reading.
Right. Well, now, so tarot is often dismissed as like guesswork or superstition. Um, why do you think that is? Because that's something that's kind of, I feel like it's been happening since I was a little kid. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's just it's fake. It's not real. It's they're just cards, nothing more."
Well, I think going back to what I said earlier, it's up to interpretation. So people see that as kind of a woo woo answer, or a well, then you can be interpreting it any way you want, not necessarily what exactly the card means or what the entire reading means as a whole. And I mean, it's good to be skeptical about it. It's good to be skeptical about going to a psychic medium, whether they're spot on or not. Be skeptical, because you are trying to get a message, whatever that is. Um, so and we've talked about this just doing paranormal investigation though too. Be skeptical, because it is one of those things that we don't know for sure.
Right. Well, and on top of that, it's and this is a very rare instance, but there are people out there who who don't have the answers, who read these cards and they just use a type of manipulation to help trick you into thinking they know something about your life and make you believe it too. And then you're sent on a path that maybe you weren't meant to be walking down. You know, you kind of shifts gears when maybe you should have stayed on that first path to begin with. And of course, that's if you're looking for a path change or, um, uh, like I guess, kind of guidance on the path that you're currently on. You
Mm.
know, because I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, where I'm going is just really difficult. It's not working out. It's not working out. It's not working out." And they think, "Oh, well, the obvious choice is I'm on the wrong path," and that's not the case. In many cases, if you're struggling, it's because you're on the right one, but there's a lot of hurdles, and if you're on the right one, there's a lot of things happening in the background that want to keep you from that, especially on a spiritual plane. Um, you know, and that's something you need to be aware of. Not every bad thing is telling you like this is wrong, this isn't the right choice. Instead, it's saying, "Oh no, this path is going to take you exactly where we don't want you to go. It's going to make you bigger. It's going to make you brighter. It's going to make you happier." But mm, mm, no, we don't want that. We want to turn you this way instead for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking. You know, normally I'll be like, it's the demons and this and that, but it's like it's just generally it's people sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
we hear about individuals who spite us and they kind of create a bad juju toward us. Maybe not even on purpose. Maybe they don't do it like specifically to us, but there are certain thoughts or certain energies that they put out that do try to shape or move us from certain paths. I don't know if you guys can see.
At first, I'm
Dinks
like,
is about to.
there's a shadow behind you, but then I saw the tail.
If only it was a shadow. It is a shadow. It's a void. It's darker than a shadow. I am talking about you. He's like looking at me like, excuse you.
But yeah, there's charlatans through and through. I mean, that goes for any walk of life, but even so, even a lot of mediums or what they call themselves as psychic mediums are not. Um, they're just doing a what most people call a cold reading or reading the room, if you will.
Yeah. Do you think so? So growing up, I mean, obviously, for those of you listening, you probably have been, if you're roughly our age, maybe a little older, um, you probably kind of experienced this. But growing up, you and I, we kind of grew up in an era where tarot, Ouija, all these things were very bad. They were dangerous. They were scary. You know, nothing but evil comes from it. And of course, a lot of this comes from our upbringing. It comes from the media that we were consuming at the time, the movies, the television shows, things like that. But there's been a change
Mhm.
in the world as of relatively recent. Why do you think that is? Like, what? How is it? The younger generations that are coming in and saying, you know what? I want to kind of take my life into my own hands a bit and kind of step away from, you know, what my parents are telling me to do or what other the famous people are telling me to do or what I don't want to rely on God for something. Like, what do you think happened? Or do you think it's just like people aren't as scared anymore? It's just like, oh, it's all silly. And so let's have fun with this.
Well, I mean, during our childhood is when the Satanic Panic happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as time has gone on, religion has kind of changed as well. Not in the sense of the teachings, but what message they're bringing out, depending on the church you go to, has changed quite significantly. On top of that, um, it has been, within the information age coming to fruition in our lifetime. There's a lot of information. Not all of it is great. I'll say that right off the bat, but the information is readily available where before you'd have to go to a library, check out a book,
Yeah.
so the information age is opening people's minds and hearts to different types of phenomenon, whether that's paranormal, even like nature, the different phenomenons that we see in nature that a lot of people used to attribute to paranormal are people are starting to realize, okay, well, our world has a lot more stuff going on than we realize. And sadly, we've kind of gotten away from enjoying nature as much as we have.
Right.
But looks like we have our guest here. Ethony, welcome to ParaTruth.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm like cutting it right at 7:30. I was just getting the dogs and the kid and everything situated before I got on.
Not a problem. So, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. I've been very busy, but we had a lovely day here in Vancouver. We actually got some sun. Shock
Nice.
horror. Usually it just pisses down with rain, so
So, first question we've got for you is what got you interested in doing tarot?
Great question. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. And I super appreciate it. So what got me into tarot? So I bought my first tarot deck when I was 15, and I purchased it as a part of my year in a day study. I was introduced to like reconstructed Wicca in the late 90s, and as a part of my year in a day sort of journal, I had to also have a divination portion to show self-reflection and to help with my intuition being growing. And so I chose the tarot, and ever since then it has been a love story, I guess. I haven't looked back ever since. I haven't looked back since.
What else? So Justin and I were actually just chatting a little bit about it. But when tarot is often dismissed as either like guesswork or superstition in many cases, but what do people most misunderstand about tarot?
It's a tool, and just like any tool, it really is at the intention and the skill level and the I guess the heart of the user. You can pick up a hammer and use it. You could really just mount a hammer on your wall and decide it's art, so you can use that tool in any way, shape that you want. It can be seen as just 78 pieces of art. It can be seen as a divination system, or it can be a companion to look at self-reflection. But it really depends on the user behind it. So it is really such a broad tool. And every time we look at the tarot, or a new generation finds it and a new generation adapts the tarot to something else, we are adding to this rich tapestry where it has evolved from, a playing card game to this incredible multifaceted tool that we get to use hundreds and hundreds of years later. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that it's really what you make it.
Okay. Now, the book is called Become an Exceptional Tarot Reader. When you say exceptional tarot reader, what separates that from someone who is, just knows card meanings?
Yeah, really, really great question. So an exceptional tarot reader is someone who can take what can be seen as something that is still a little bit mysterious and might even have some titles or some imagery that makes absolutely no sense in the modern world. Like, we don't have in many places kings, queens, pages, and knights, unless in your books and on TV. And make these archetypes and these enduring symbols and this enduring symbolic language make sense for today. An exceptional tarot reader is not just someone who knows the core of the meanings of the cards, and that will also depend on the system that the person is choosing. That could be because there are definitely different ways of looking at things depending on whether you're a Marseille, a Thoth, or Toth, depending on how you pronounce it, or a Rider-Waite-Smith person, is going to kind of color a little bit of how you interact with those meanings. But an exceptional tarot reader is able to build on top of that, is able to make it something where it is empowering and impactful for someone right now in 2026 and beyond, you know. So I've never been the type of reader, even though I learned the tarot as a divination tool and came to it with my teachers that I got after I read every book that I get my hands on from a divination practice. I've always wanted to empower everyone I've ever had a session with, or anyone that I've ever introduced to the tarot, and how it can be a partner in helping you co-create the life that you want, even if that's just learning to know yourself better and why you're making certain decisions, or identifying patterns and things like that, all the way to possibly looking at the potentials of what may happen should you choose to do something or should you choose not to.
Okay.
But so when it comes to social media, especially, because we see a lot of tarot card readers on social media, TikTok's really big on it. Do you think that tarot has kind of been harmed in some way by maybe seeming oversimplified on social media? Or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it adds a level of curiosity for people. I like in this, look, I'm about to age myself, everyone. Hold on to your horses. I'm about to age myself here. But do you remember, I don't know if you all remember this, I don't know how much experience you guys have had with like tarot and the world of like tarot and oracle decks and all that kind of stuff. But there was a time back in the day when Ms. Doreen Virtue was like what many people would say is like the gateway to a lot of people finding cartomancy. And a lot of people had very strong opinions. They still do. I don't necessarily want to get into her because I think she's an absolute dumpster fire. But a lot of people were like really butthurt about the fact that she had these like angel things and unicorns or fluffy and blah, blah, blah. But I used to say to people, yes, and right, like, yes, and it's not for you. We're not always everyone's target audience. But if this person allows someone in a society or in a little city that's not necessarily very witchy or whatever friendly to go and find this tool and allows them to start asking questions about knowing themselves better or learning about themselves and listening to their inner voice or listening to divine guidance or however you want to say how they're working with it, it might lead on to something completely different. This might change their entire worldview, because at some point, those entry points, no matter if it's a video game or learning a language or learning how to cook, once you get beyond the basics, if it's something you're genuinely interested in, you're going to look for better, bigger, more in-depth things, right? Most people will look beyond, just the basics. So TikTok and social media readers who might seem to water it down, or I don't really spend a lot of time on TikTok for a lot of reasons, but if it gets someone to like get into it and be like, oh, how'd they get there, then that's great. But there's always going to be an audience for people who want to find someone, whether it's a tarot reader, palmistry person, astrologer, whatever. They just want to be told, like they want to hear specific things, and they're just going to look for everyone until they're told that. There's always going to be those people out there, and there's always going to be people who are going to take advantage of people in crisis or are really looking for help. But if it can even like bring it to a bigger audience, then I think that's great, because we all are exposed to different things like tarot in different ways. And so I guess I only just say to people who come across these readers on TikTok or whatever, any reader or anyone on social media, is do some freaking research, right? Especially now when these people may not even be freaking real. Like, it's crazy. Like, do some research to see if this person is actually a living, breathing person, or if it's just some bot or AI junk. and then look at their digital footprint, because that's when you're really going to be able to see whether this person knows what the fuck they're talking about, or whether this person just cares about their views. And all power to you if all you give a stuff about is your views, but like on social media. But I mean, a little discernment goes a long bloody way. It's just, it seems like not a lot of people. That's what I mean. But there seems to be sometimes a little bit of lacking of the common sense. But if it does bring tarot to the forefront, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's like even bad publicity is still publicity, and it gets people to an extent interested.
Even if it starts a conversation.
No, there's a lot of talk about ethics and responsibility when it comes to the paranormal in general, but when it comes to mediums and psychics and even tarot readers, why are ethics so critical in tarot, especially when reading for others?
Because the power of suggestion, especially the power of suggestion when someone is at a crossroads, or they've suffered a loss, or their entire worldview is completely been upended, cannot be understated. I am obsessed with, I love psychology. I've done a lot of reading and research on the psychology of how people get into cults, especially, and how people get influenced, or people who seem to be very, very intelligent seem to get scammed and things like that, as well as like reading about relationships and bettering my communication skills and everything else. But I find it fascinating because predators, and there are predators out there in every field, in everything everyone does. There are going to be crappy car salesmen, bad plumbers, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. There's just shitty people on the planet, unfortunately. But they wait for that intersection of opportunity and crisis. And then that's when there can be some really unfortunate exchanges happening. And that's like on the most extreme, where you see people get scammed for a lot of money. But ethics is so important, because I've been very fortunate. I've read for thousands of people over the years, and I have heard everything, guys. Like, I have heard everything. And I'm really glad and I'm really happy that my professional background before I started reading the cards was in HR, was in human resources, operations and recruitment for very, very intense industries like the oil and gas and mining industry, because that really gave me a lot of really good bloody training on how to have very, very difficult conversations, mediations, how to be professional and ethical about what you're talking about, and learning the power of your words and the power of suggestion. But not everyone is going to have that. There is no board of certification when it comes to readers. So having somewhere where people can get to know who you are and what you stand for is really, really important. But if someone comes to you when, for example, they've just found out that the father that has passed away had an illegitimate family with someone else, right? This happens. We've all watched TV. We might even know someone where that has happened to them. And they go to someone who's hasn't really done any development, because anyone can slap up a website and say they're a 7th generation reincarnation of Cleopatra tarot reader, and then they say to them, well, this is all your fault, and they completely bypass all that stuff, or they somehow turn this into a more traumatic experience for that person. That can take so much more like therapy, but just so damaging, right? Or you see this a lot with the say, for example, the 3 of Swords. A lot of people will say, well, that's the card of someone who's cheating, and it's like, okay, well, that can be someone who is being unfaithful, but a lot of things have to be lining up, and you have to be bloody sure that you are, delivering that message to someone who is in a space who can hear it, because a lot of people may not be, and B, just be aware of what you could be potentially blowing up if you are wrong. Right. And also, we don't know the person, our client. Oftentimes you can get an idea, but we don't know the inner workings and how that person is going to deal with stressful information, or or information that could be really upsetting, So being ethical is really, really important. And just even being like completely aware of just going like, there's a time and a place for everything. I've seen everything from death, like actual physical death of someone, happens very rarely, by the way, to people who've been cheated on, to people who've had their business partners embezzle money, to loss of pregnancies that people haven't spoken about. I've seen of everything, but those are never taken. I mean, I take those so seriously. Yeah. And again, thankfully, my training has been and all of the continuous professional development I've done over the years, over the decades of doing this, have helped me form the ability to hold space for people in that, and then go, okay, well, this is probably something where offline, outside of the reading, I can refer you to a very good lawyer or a good financial advisor or a really good therapist, or and take action on that behalf too. So yeah, we can deal with some really intense stuff, and then sometimes we can just deal with really fun things. So humans are a full spectrum experience, and that's what's going to happen when you read the cards for other people.
Yeah. Well, now, so I mean, with ethics out there, like when it comes to being a tarot reader, like what are some boundaries that maybe tarot readers should have, but at sometimes like maybe they don't even bother taking the boundaries?
Boundaries are going to be something that every tarot reader has to think about themselves. When I'm teaching tarot from my Tarot Readers Academy, and I do have classes and courses where I teach people how to read for other people, and ethics is a big part of it. And I actually ask all of my students to write their own code of ethics, and I give them some examples, and I give them some hypothetical like questions that people might come to them, and I say, well, how would you go about this if someone sat in front of you and said this? But knowing your limit, like I know I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to have someone show me some weird spot on their hand and be like, I'm going to throw some cards and tell you that's a melanoma. Like that is so out of my own. That's just flat out wrong. But B, go see a doctor. Never mind the bloody cards. Just go make a doctor's appointment. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not an accountant. Good Lord, help anyone who thinks I'm an accountant. I am good with my own money, but I mean, like tax time comes, and that's why I got a bookkeeper and an accountant. You know what I mean? Like, forget that noise. I am not a lawyer. Law is so unbelievably nuanced because every state, every province, every country has got different laws, bylaws, and all sorts of business laws, insurance laws. Like, I'm not that. So being a bit aware and being humble as well as like knowing like, look, mate, this is not my wheelhouse. And I can help you with like what you can get prepared for and how you can react in this situation or what you may need to know. But it gets to the point of going like, if you're asking me, what is the likelihood of you winning in court? Sure, I can look at that, but don't ask me how you're going to win in court. Right. I don't bloody know. I'm not your lawyer. So sometimes it comes to getting really clear on the question coming in, and that is a huge part about being an exceptional reader, is helping your querent or your client get very clear on the reason why they've come and sat with you. Because some people will come in and they will know, and they know exactly what they want to know, and they've done this before, or they're a little self-aware. And other people will just be like, my life is a shit show, help me. And being able to help that person through getting some clarity as to really what's at the core of that also makes you a really exceptional tarot reader. And then knowing where your boundaries are, because if someone wants me to tell them how they're going to win a court, a court proceeding, I'm going to refund them and give them their money back if that's what they want from me. But if they want to know whether the likelihood of them being successful in court or the likelihood of them getting into the university they want to get into, I can definitely build something out from there. But it's really understanding, A, where are you professionally qualified to put your 2 cents in, and B, how are you going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror? Can you look at yourself in the mirror? And then really knowing that for yourself, so that if those lines if someone does come up to that line, you've got something to respond, not in the heat of the moment, but to say, hey, look, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know if I can tell you to buy this stock because that's not my profession, and your money would be better off talking to somebody else, and I can issue you a refund. So, yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, it does.
So something that a lot of people, I think of when they think of tarot is going to somebody to get a reading, but a lot of people do a tarot reading for themselves. How can tarot be used as a tool for self-reflection rather than prediction?
I do this all the time. I read for myself. I have journals full of tarot spreads that I do for myself. And often I will use a tarot deck that is not something I know well. So I've got a lot of Rider-Waite-Smith clone decks or Rider-Waite-Smith based decks that I know very, very well, that I work with my clients all the time. But I have some tarot decks that are a little different, that are a little, maybe the mages are called something different, or they have a different theme where it's completely out of the blue changes. Even some of them I've got where this is not my favorite, but the order has changed in some stuff. That doesn't, my Virgo rising really struggles with that one. But I will usually find a deck that might be a little bit different because it will force me to remove myself from my biases. And I'll also look at the way in which I'm questioning the tarot, the way in which I'm forming the question, and the way in which I'm creating my tarot spread when I'm reading for myself, because I also will not likely get into a divination space. Like I won't necessarily be looking at what is the most likely outcome for this if it's for myself. It'll be more of a self-reflective practice. And it helps me get out of my head a little bit. And then sometimes I will also do that and read with a best friend. And so, she'll be sitting with me and be like, oh, I see this a little bit differently. And then I'll go, oh, that's really interesting because I can see it through my lens. But having somebody else who knows me enough to kind of be like, oh, well, remember when that happened? Maybe this is really referring to this. Or, you might not think that you've said this or think that you look at things this way, but actually, boo, you do, because, the other day you said this to me. It's like, oh, shit, yeah, I totally do sometimes. So I will work with a deck that I'm not 100% familiar with, especially one that I want to get to learn, or that might have the same structure as the Rider-Waite, but have very different imagery. So like the True Black Tarot is an example where that's very, very different. For many years, I worked with the Medicine Woman Tarot from US Game Systems because that was very different and was very out of the box for me, and it was much more spiritual, much more really looking at the impact of your inner world versus the outer world. And then I won't necessarily be looking at those divination things. And then I also know that sometimes I've got to go and book myself in to go get a reading from somebody else. I've got readers that I'm very lucky. I know quite a few people in this industry, and so I can book in with them or give them a call and be like, I need somebody else to read me, please, because I'm way too close to this.
For sure.
But now, obviously, you have quite a few tarot decks, and I imagine many tarot readers out there do. Do you typically work with one tarot deck for a season, or do you kind of discern what tarot deck to use dependent on your client?
I have got lots of decks. I'm probably around the 400 to 500 mark right now. And a lot of that is because I'm constantly creating decks as well, but that I'm sent decks from people. I also back lots of decks on Kickstarter, and I purchase the crap out of a lot of decks. It is just maybe a little bit of an obsession. But I have got specific tarot decks that I work with for specific readings. So I have my Orosoma Tarot, for example, that I will only ever use for Orosoma readings, and that's always out on my desk. But I have these little drawers next to my screen, and there's 15 of them, and I will cycle out decks. So I will usually always have my Cosmic Wisdom Tarot deck, which is a deck that I've created. I'll usually have my Druidcraft Tarot, which is a deck that I've had since the early 2000s, and I love, and I've read for thousands of people. But then it's often seasonal, but I tend to have a more shadowy or a more I guess like black and white or a shadow themed deck that I like to have out, because sometimes we've got to go there. But then usually it's the season. So right now I'm starting to get out more of the decks that are more aligned to spring, that are bringing in that fresh energy, that are kind of aligned with the natural world. And I think that's a throwback to my like witchy roots, that I tend to do that. But then I will also have a deck that speaks to mediumship and working and speaking with spirit and spirits. So there are seasonal ones, and then there are reason ones, and then there are lifetime. And then just to make sure that I'm kind of getting through and really working with my decks, because I want to work with them. There are very few decks that I purchase and just park, you know, like they're meant to be used. There are some that are like rare collector's ones that I'm like, this is because I'm a nerd and I want to have this nerd thing in its nerd box. Do not break the seal. But for often, you know, I do actually want to get to use it and have that as a part of my collection that is in use. Yeah.
Okay.
So something that a lot of people think when they're thinking about tarot is, oh yeah, you know, I can do this. I can read tarot. What's the biggest mistake aspiring professional readers make?
Oh, I think there's many mistakes that aspiring professional readers can make. I'm very aware of anyone who tries to tell you that you can make six figures out of this after 3 months of learning, or that you're not going to, or that you're not going to have to do lots of admin, and it's going to be a lot of work behind the scenes. Like it's that very much like 80% behind the scenes, 20% like you're actually getting to do fun stuff like this, or getting to do that interface stuff. It is hard work. I mean, I've been running my tarot business, doing this full time for nearly 11 years now, since I moved everything online. And you know, the world changes, things change, you're going to have to adjust quickly. But yeah, I guess it maybe I'm a bit of an old dinosaur. Maybe I should be on TikTok and streaming 12 hours a day. Maybe that's the way to go. But anything that you want to do as a profession, I actually really hate that saying, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. It's like, I love what I do and I've never worked fucking harder in my entire life, because the buck stops with me. I need to be doing the thing, you know, like I can't just go, well, I've clocked out, that's someone else's problem. It's like, no, actually this is my thing, and I'm the face of my business. So yeah, but the whole like, oh, you can make six figures in 3 months, or that kind of predatory behavior of people who want to sell stuff, that kind of grinds my gears a little bit, gets my goat. But yeah, you'll be doing admin and you'll be dealing with a lot of different people. So be prepared to get thrown every curveball in the book.
Well, now, if you don't mind sharing, going kind of along those lines, like how important is structure, pricing, and even boundaries in professional tarot work?
Yeah, it is really important to have all of those things. I didn't at the beginning have like I guess like office hours, because I was working and building my business while I was on maternity leave, and I worked really hard all the time for the first couple of years to get everything up and running. But having those boundaries is really important. So ensuring that you've got that level of separation. So most of my clients don't have my mobile phone number, for example. You know, if they want to get a hold of me, they have to email me, because, you know, I'm a single mother. I've got things I've got to get done too in a personal in my personal life, and my family is going to come first. So having those boundaries is going to be very, very important, but also having office hours and showing up and giving a shit is really important too. I've seen a lot of very talented spiritual people, whether it be healing modalities or mediumship or tarot reading. They're so talented, but there's no business acumen behind it. So it fails because there's so much of this like, well, I guess the raw talent will carry you. It's like, yes, but we live in a world where we need to be able to, show up for work every day, unless you're sick or whatever it may be. Do your things that need to be doing, even if you don't want to do them or they're not very fun, and be consistent and not just want to be like, oh, when the moon is, I'll only work 3 hours when the moon is in Aquarius and is in a waxing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, good luck with that, honey buns. Like, I'm sure like that's fabulous, but you're shooting yourself in the foot there. So having boundaries and really also being aware of what your capacity is, because if your capacity is you just want to show up and do the job and go home, go work for a shop, or go do events where you show up, you do your job, and you go home. Being someone who is their own, I guess, like, I hate this word, but someone who is their own brand or runs their own everything, that's not for everybody. So knowing where you're best suited and where your talent can really shine, instead of trying to be everything for everybody, including doing everything yourself, so that you can actually bring your gift to the world and reach people in a way that is going to feel good for everyone involved.
Now, if someone wants to truly improve their reading ability, where should they really start?
Read for people you don't know. Like, honestly, you are going to be shaking in your boots. Probably, I mean, I remember the first few times I got to say, it was like the first few years of reading for people I didn't know. And that's really earning your stripes. Nothing like experience is going to give you the ability to know whether this is something you really want to do professionally, because doing it as a side thing or just doing a few like fun events or with your girlfriends on the weekend, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to turn everything you love into a freaking side hustle or a job. Like, you just don't. But I really was like, the first time I did a psychic fair, I was crapping myself, right? But like, you have to at some point rip the Band-Aid off and read for people you don't know, because there is a comfortness in, like, a comfort ability of reading your friends and your family, but it's also a handicap, because those people aren't going to really want to hear it from you anyway. Like, they're not going to want you. We all know when we've given people advice in our friends and family, and then they don't listen, and then some asshole comes in that they don't really know and says exactly the same bloody thing, and they listen to them, and you're just like, why? Like, that happens from a tarot perspective too. Like, go find people you don't know. Go ask United, the universal churches. Like, I can't really remember they're called, United churches, or the ones that are open to all modalities. Mm-hmm. Go look and see where your local psychic fairs are. Believe me, they're somewhere in your town. Go sign up for it. Even if you just say, I'm a student reader, no one cares. If you're a student reader and you're doing it for $5 or a tip or $10, that is the best way to hit the ground running and learn, is from people you don't know and that don't have a vested interest in their life. I think that's the best way of learning, and practice. I still read books on tarot. I love especially going into secondhand bookstores and finding like old antique books from the 60s and 50s. Oh, my favorite. I love that stuff. Like, you can lose me in those places. I still love reading about tarot and about the spiritual world and about parapsychology and about psychology. And I mean, I'm just a very Gemini, but yeah, never stop learning, because even if you know the 5 of Cups means grief and it means loss and it means sometimes crying over spilt milk, it's like, you never know when really there's that aha moment, or an author says it in a way that really hits you, and you're like, and it opens up a whole new doorway to you. And get readings from other people. I've been really lucky to go to a lot of conferences, a lot of tarot conferences. And usually in those tarot conferences, you'll do readings for each other. And I've had incredible transformational moments on the cards, because another reader has said something and I'm like, I've completely missed that about this card, or I've never seen it that way, or because I didn't study the Golden Dawn to the level of this person, I don't have that lens. But hearing it from somebody else has been like so great. And when the other thing about getting readings from other people is I've also learned how not to be a reader and what not to do from getting readings from people and going like, whoa, this person, like, I can't believe they said that, or they're charging for this, or like, wow, I'm really over delivering. So get a bit of perspective on everything, I think is a good way to go.
Okay. Well, now, so if listeners were to remember only one thing about tarot after this conversation, what do you hope it is?
Don't let anyone tell you what the tarot is to you. What the tarot is for me is what it is for me. Gatekeeping in anything is a little bit nonsensical, especially in the world of where we can just Google anything. But yeah, don't let anyone say what you can, you can't do. I still get emails to this day where people say to me, my family and friends told me the tarot is evil and, you know, they don't want me doing this, or I've heard that you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I get why people can sometimes have those experiences, those biases, because the tarot has been around for a long time, and maybe you think there are some traditions that come along with that, and you have to do it right. Or you have your religious backgrounds of people who are going to color their perspective of the tarot moving forward and how they see it. But don't let anyone tell you that you can't work with the cards and what tarot is to you. I will die on the hill that if you are going to be a tarot reader, you have to learn the system of tarot. You can be an intuitive card reader and read with any tarot, oracle, playing card, I don't give a stuff, Pokemon cards you want. Absolutely go for it. Pikachu going to tell you that you're going to have a fantastic day and get you the job that you've applied for. Fill your boots, honey. That's amazing. But you are not a tarot reader if you do not know and learn and understand the structure of the tarot deck. You are a card reader who happens to read with a tarot deck. But don't let anyone say that you can't be an intuitive reader who uses the tarot. I know that seems a little bit hypocritical, like of what I was saying, but you get to use the tool however you want. I differentiate that from the person who understands and reads the cards as the tarot, as the thing that has been handed down by the people who designed the decks, especially from the 1900s onwards. Well, I mean, a little earlier than that, but let's just say when the major Rider-Waite-Smith and the Thoth started in the early 1900s. The Marseille, the Tarot de Marseille is a little bit further back, but even that is rooted in numerology and also has a system. It was handed down. So you learn that, for God's sake, if you want to call yourself a tarot reader. But you can also use it as an intuitive tool as well. But, I mean, I'm not the Grand Poobah of tarot. If you don't agree with what I say, well, then do whatever you want. Like, no one decided that I'm the one to speak on behalf of all of our incredible community. But if it's a tool you love, if there's something that you're drawn to, then give yourself permission to be curious and to see where that leads you, because curiosity and joy and passion will lead you infinitely more fun places than being worried about doing it wrong,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we are at that time where we have to let you go. So want to give you a chance to tell everybody where they can find you, find your work. The mic's all yours.
So I am over at ethony.com. You can find me there, and tarotreadersacademy.com as well. And all of my books are at Llewellyn. I'm published through them, and yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to just put you in limbo while we close out the show, so if you don't mind hanging on with us for a little bit. We'll talk to you after we close out.
Thanks.
All right. All right, everybody. So as we said at the beginning, this has been a live show on 107.7 FM New Orleans and 105.3 FM the Gulf Coast and United Public Radio Network. So until next week, when you find us, same time, same channel, my name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
Peace.